Hello, everybody, and welcome to everyone to our talk today, titled Redefining Visibility. My name is Grant Amond, and I am the director of the Goethe Pop-Up Houston, which is a temporary branch of the Goethe Institute, which is Germany's official cultural institute. Today, we will discuss the innovative ways art is being made visible and accessible during these unique times. We will highlight collective creative action across 3 different types of spaces and locations that address the challenges of looking at art in the midst of a pandemic. Our discussion today will run for about 45 minutes, after which we will open up the discussion to questions. So please feel free to use the Q&A function on Zoom throughout the discussion, and we will get to as many as time allows. Also, during the discussion, we will be sending out some poll questions. And so those poll questions should pop up automatically, and you can answer the questions as you like. Our discussion today is moderated by Rabéa Ballin. She's born in Germany, raised in Louisiana. Rabéa is a Houston-based artist and educator. She's a member of the all-female Rue Printmaking Collective and has served as an artist board member at both Art League Houston and Diverse Works. Rabéa also currently serves as department chair and assistant professor of art history and drawing at Lone Star College. So, without any further delay, I'd like to hand it over now to Rabéa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Grant. Thank you, everyone who's here. Welcome, Janice, Julia, Danielle, everyone. I appreciate this platform that you've granted me, if you will. I want to thank everyone who's taking their lunch break or coffee break, if you will. I have mine right here. I'm going to make this mug very famous one day. Or perhaps it's dinner time, and because you're joining us from Europe, as Julia is, or I heard that we might have some people tuning in from South Africa and even the Netherlands. So this is a global thing today. I just wanted to briefly mention I have a personal connection with the Goethe Institute and with the Goethe pop-up. I was just so excited to be able to do something on their behalf because when I was in college, I did an exchange with the Goethe Institute in Mannheim. And that was really impactful for me because it reconnected me back to my place of birth and my family through language. So be able to do that here and now and reconnect to Germany with art is basically full circle for me and a dream come true. Also want to thank Goethe for allowing me to pick the topic and to be able to talk about what I was interested in, what I wanted to talk about. So I'm thrilled to be able to have sort of, my intent is to have an informal but informative discussion with the ladies I brought on board today. And I'm coming to them from the perspective of being an artist and a creative. And I know that many of the audience members are creatives. So I'm speaking to all of us, whether we're writers, performance artists, producers, musicians, visual artists, all alike. We want to be seen. And these ladies have dedicated their crafts to helping us be seen. And I want to bridge that gap a little bit. Also, this is a pandemic. So we need to overcome, or I would like to discuss some of the challenges that we are overcoming and the beautiful, innovative ways these ladies are putting art out there. And then in turn, how we can support them. Obviously, if it wasn't for us making work, they wouldn't have anything to put out. But they also depend on us to support them and to visit these spaces and to take advantage of that. So hopefully this will be sort of a sonic exchange of ideas, if you will. I'm going to transition. I'm going to introduce all the ladies individually. I'm going to start off with Janice Bond. So Janice, you are not new to Houston, but you're kind of new to Houston. And I like to say that we bonded over the fact that we both like great champagne and pop culture. And if you mix those two, it sort of defines the kind of conversations I enjoy having with you. um, but primarily you're here because you have a dope job. And if I may, I have my notes here. You are in the executive office. You are a deputy director of the Contemporary Arts Museum, Houston. That is an amazing title, but I gotta be honest, what does that even mean? What do you do?
You know, the funny part is that until I was actually moving towards the position, I remember asking that same question of other people that I had seen that as their position. I was like, so what does a deputy director actually do? So here at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston, my function is really focused around mission and operations. So everything from like really looking at our programming, you know, synthesizing partnerships, creating new ideas. Right now, definitely looking at all of our initiatives as it pertains to DEI and public programs. So really, it's just the entire vision and the human side of the museum, really looking at how we can, you know, continue to move things forward with the evolving vision and even some of the originating vision of the museum. And so I work alongside the executive director, Hesse McGrath, and we run point, you know, side by side on just supporting the team and creating spaces to both show the work and support the community.
Speaking of Hesse, I took his quote directly off of his director's note because I just love the way it read. In a year of cataclysmic events, we've each truly experienced unique effects. True. Whether your year is defined by loss, transition, endless doom scrolling, which I am the victim of here, or a newfound love of baking or eating, I think we can recognize a monumental shift. We can all recognize a monumental shifts occurring across society and culture. That really spoke to me because I also see your institution making that effort. And you're one of the first that I noticed right away, like jumped right in and vamped up that virtual presence, like almost immediately. And which thankfully, or I appreciate the fact that I was even included in that. And so just to kind of talk about that a little bit and what else it is that you do, I wanted to ask you, why is my computer stuck now? Okay, here we go. So the CAM, like I said, has been one of those spaces that has remained very active. So another quote that I read on the website was bringing art making activities, educational programs, and conversations with artists wherever they are to wherever you are. So if you would, could you please share with us some ways that the visitor that we are able to experience the CAM in this moment that we're having?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you have the Cam Lab slide up because I'm thinking about around this time, a lot of people start asking, well, how have you settled in? How are you settling in to Cam? And the answer is always, you know, pretty much the same. It's, I'm not. That wasn't why I came here. I didn't come here to settle in at all, you know. So I came here to disrupt with intention. And so, you know, again, having an executive partner, you know, like Hesse and the board, we're really looking at not just what we wanted to share with the world. When we were considering whether or not we were going to open to the public, we had to reprioritize and say, okay, you know, what's safe? You know, not just the safety of the community, but the safety of our team, the safety of our internal family that makes this place work. And then also, what are the needs? You know, yes, we want to and will continue to share beautiful, high quality, introspective, like a contemporary art, but what is the need of the community? And at the time, you know, we really saw this need for space, the need for different conversations and exploration and experimentation within the hyperlocal creative community. And so if we were really to, you know, to really want to support our overall ecosystem, it was time to get creative. It was time to get a little bit experimental. And it was time to, which is something that we say now internally quite a bit, it was time to trust artists. And so Cam Lab was born this fall of that idea. And, you know, both through, even prior to Cam Lab, but through Cam Lab and other programs. And there's a tab on our website that is listed as Beyond Cam. And you'll see a lot of our Cam Connects virtual programs that started spring, early summer. That's everything from interviews to our Instagram takeovers. And so exponentially, our team has shifted with intention to really expanding and deepening our virtual programs, and then programs such as these, to really just reconnect with people, whether it's through Instagram, Facebook, panels, art kits. We work with artists all over the country to create different things, playlists, to shifting our 30th anniversary of Another Great Night, annual event, to being virtual, and collaborating with great artists such as yourself, to make those things happen. So these intersections and highlights of the community, artists and our team have all been intentional. And we've just looked for different platforms and ways to make space for it to happen.
I really appreciate the focus you've been putting, or that I've been noticing, back onto like performative works and music, and for sharing your space, sort of carving that space for those artists that need a venue at this time.
Mhm.
Even using your outdoor garden as a place to, bring people together safely. As with this exhibition here, Toby's, I wanted to ask, is this how we have to dress when we come into the CAM?
I was like, that should be everywhere you go. Just you show up and someone hands you a jumpsuit, and no one even has to think about what you're wearing anymore. You just show up in a jumpsuit. We're all,
Yeah, I love it. I love the color. We all look good in a jumpsuit, and I feel very safe wearing that. So thank you. Jokes aside, that was part of the exhibition, and those who entered got a custom jumpsuit to put on, and it made me feel safe, and it made me think about the experience of the museum and how that's changing. And I just wanted to share with the audience, like, what your the Instagram, the opportunity to do that, and the IG videos that I so appreciate you doing. And something that you said that stood out to me was one of your the core vision of the CAM, and that is to trust artists.
right.
So I not only want to shout out the Contemporary Arts Museum, but also other spaces like Art League. I think my friends at Art League are in the audience, so hello to you. To Diverse Works, just seeing public art being put out there. I know Lawndale has an incentive now to just like make use of their window spaces in the front as a way to show murals. And so I think that's great, and that's amazing, and I just appreciate the work that you've done on our behalf of artists in that sense. I wanted to kind of have a little bit of fun and include the audience, some audience participation. So I have a panel question. If Grant, do you mind posting the first question? It's for you, Janice. It's a bit of this. It's not a question for you, it's a question for the audience, and then I'll have you respond, okay? So the question is, Janice is not only a deputy director / curator, but she's also an accomplished pianist, DJ, photographer, or poet. So if the audience would please select an option, and we'll see what they think, and then Janice will let you answer that question.
Oh my, I get to be a trivia question. This is great.
I know, right? We want to, we're here to celebrate everything, and this is a good day. And I wanted to just celebrate, while they're voting, I wanted to mention a conversation that we had. We both just sort of reminisced and had a flashback of both of us being, I think we were in our teens. I definitely was, coming to Houston, standing in front of the CAM, looking at this beautiful piece of architecture and wondering, wow, who gets to do this? Who gets to come here? Who gets to live around the corner? Who gets to be involved and have artwork shown here? Like, how does that even happen? And now future us is looking back, and you are there, you are in there. So that is something that I want to celebrate.
No, and thank you. And back to you. And I want to say two things. One, before we answer this question. One, thank you for the kind words. I want to make sure that it's clear, you can have vision, but the vision, the collective vision, is what's making all of these things happen at CAM. There are a lot of people, we're not a huge team, but there are many people, from our facilities team to our exhibitions team, public programs, like people who are really truly invested. You know, a majority of our team, interestingly enough, are also artists and creators themselves. So during this time when people are both, we're trying to make sure that the place is safe for the community and artists to do their work. You know, you hear about little projects downstairs that someone in exhibitions is working on, or, you know, that just all kinds of things. And it makes me really excited and proud to know that it's not just people coming to work every day, like the people that work here, they care. And it makes me want to fight harder for the collective vision that we have. So I want to say that. But should I go ahead and answer the question now?
Grant, can we put up the, okay, so the majority of people, looks like 39% think you are a DJ.
Okay.
It's not the right answer. You are an accomplished photographer. Oh, I'm sorry. You answer. I gave it away. I'm so sorry.
I mean, it's you know, it's the internet. But so here's the thing. I'm glad you put the word accomplished there. That's great. I'm leaning into that these days more and more. But I am a photographer. But interestingly enough, I suppose you don't know, like I've DJ'd for years.
Did you?
Yeah. But I wouldn't think that anyone would like, I don't know. Yeah, I still
Well,
have that artist. I still have that artist thing where it's like,
I chose those answers based on things I could imagine you doing and being really, really good at. And those are the things that came to me. So I guess we just didn't have that conversation yet. So we're going to elaborate on that.
yeah, we're definitely going to do that. But art, culture, community, I always like to say I've done the same three things a million different ways, and I've loved every part of it. So, you know,
Okay,
that
well,
was a great little trivia question.
for those of you that haven't yet, and I have a slide at the end that will give you her Instagram page. It's a whole vibe. So her personal Instagram page is a whole vibe, and hopefully you get a little peek into what her vision is as a photographer. But we're going to transition to my next guest because there is a connection with the CAM, and that is Ms. Danielle Burns Wilson. I was at the CAM. I may have been working. I was a faculty member for a few years, and I saw. And I want to be her friend. I had no idea what she did or how we would meet, and we eventually met, you know, organically later. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the okay. So here we are speaking to you now, Ms. Danielle.
Oh,
And since we have to keep it professional, I just want to say that you're a dear friend of mine. But I met you first because of your role as a curator. We're also colleagues. We both teach art history together. And so I've always looked at you as, you know, an art historian and a curator first. And when I mentioned, oh, let me change my slide here. There we go, that you are a curator at the African American Library at the Gregory School. And you really stressed to me, you know, this is not just a library, this is a research library. So Danielle, I'm gonna hand it off to you because we need to know, this is such an interesting space. Can you tell us what is the Gregory School? What do you do there?
Right. So the Gregory School, just kind of history, is the third special collections part of the Houston Public Library System. And we promote and preserve the history, culture, and art of African Americans in Houston and surrounding areas. So as a research library archives, we are telling the story of Black Houston through collections that we receive from the community. So we are not a circulating library. You come here specifically for research purposes only. Now we do have a reading room, people study there, but we do not circulate books. But what's really great about the Gregory School and what makes it so special is the fact that we have exhibition space also. So it's not only you're entering into an archives that traditionally is just, you know, papers, documents, right? Photographs, but we have an actual space for us to display this. So your entry into Black Houston is through the exhibitions. So it's important that these archives have kind of they get to come to life, right? So as opposed to a lot of collections, even in museums, you know, you have a huge collection of work that people never see. like in our archives, we have this exhibition space where we can actually display this work through, exhibits that I organize.
Speaking of your archives, what is one of the coolest things that you guys have? What, like, if you were digging in the archives, what would I discover there?
You know what? There's so many things. Like it's hard, but if I would have to say a few, because I can't just say one. That's the hard part.
Tell us.
We have some great tintype photographs of Black people in Houston in the late 1800s, which are amazing. I'm sure, Janice, you would love to see some of those. We have an original Martin Luther King Jr. Funeral program that you just, don't see. And also we have a letter from Booker T. Washington to a family in Houston, and he's soliciting for funds for Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University. And I think what's so interesting about those two things is that it shows the reach of Black Houston, right? I mean, if you think about it, the program is in the Fontenot collection. Fontenot's are from Houston. So somebody from Houston was actually at the funeral of Martin Luther King Jr. Booker T. Washington, interesting fun fact, Emmett Scott, who was Booker T. Washington's right-hand man, was from Houston, Texas. Grew up in Freedmanstown, 4th Ward. Parents were enslaved, became an amazing writer. He was, again, the right-hand man of Booker T. Washington, but then also served in the Woodrow Wilson administration. And I guess what it shows is we have such a reach outside of our own community. And then if I could pick one more.
Of course. Of course.
A few years ago, I guess 2 years ago, Harrison Guy, who is a local community activist, helped us start the Charles Law Community Archives. And Charles Law was an openly gay Black archivist who actually started Texas Southern University's archives. And through that community archives, we're telling the story of the Black LGBTQ community. And our first acquisition was Barbara Jordan's wheelchair.
Those are the things we want to see. It's something about objects,
Absolutely.
A viewer, as someone who documents and collects things, the importance that objects have to trigger memory, but also to tell stories. From an art historian's perspective, when we look in the past, we're defining cultures that maybe did not leave a written history based on the objects that they have. And it's so, so important. And I say it all the time that we as creatives who make things, whether it's sound or if it's an object or, whatever it is, leave a trace behind, prove that you were alive today. It's so important. And it speaks to what your collection provides. You are the behind the scenes entity that we rely on. And the importance of documenting culture. Go ahead, Danielle.
Well, I was about to say, and we can only display what we have. Oftentimes we get people that come in even with ideas of, oh, well, why don't you have this? Or why aren't you displaying this? It's well, we don't have it. You know what I mean? We don't have this book, or nobody has given this to us because nobody's kept it. That's why it's so important for people to, again, like you just said, documenting your history, your personal history.
So because the pandemic has affected all of us in some, of course, we're not going to focus on the negative ways, but also some of the interesting things and amazing things that have come from that, because artists, we get very, very creative. We don't get quiet when times get hard. That's when we get the loudest, right? But how has it affected, what is the state of emergency as far as archiving and documenting things currently feel like?
And there is what has been coined kind of is an archival emergency going on right now, because this year will eventually end and we need to document as much as we can. And the thing about this period is the ordinary, or what we think is ordinary, actually isn't. And it's pretty extraordinary that we're living through it. So it's been amazing because some institutions, museums have actually been canvassing a lot of the marches going on, asking people for protest signs. We've done the same in Houston, but it's challenging because everything is so disposable, right? So even thinking about PPE and masks that say, "I can't breathe." Like, we need something like that in our collection, but who only just has one mask? Right? I mean, you're throwing them around, you probably don't even know where they are. And one example I have of this is, all of these movements that are going on. And in Houston in particular, we had a march after the death of George Floyd. And Trey the Truth had these amazing gloves on that had guns on them. And I mean, I was like fixated as I was watching him talk on these gloves, because I was like, we need these in our collection, because one day, whether it be 5 years from now or 50 years from now, people are going to want to see those things. Like, those ephemera things really resonate with people. And I haven't been able to talk to him personally, and I hope for some reason this gets back to him. But one of my colleagues had mentioned it supposedly, and he'd said like, "Oh man, I don't know where those gloves are," and for somebody like me who curates through collections, I mean, that's pretty devastating. Or thinking about all of the companies and institutions that have stepped in and done things outside of their normal, even looking at what was it about liquor companies that made hand sanitizer. One day we're going to want to see that little Tito's, hand sanitizer. It's just those little things. So I always am stressing right now, I think everybody should be their own archivist, and then eventually, give to collections. Let us, store that and store your stuff, so that way we can create these amazing exhibitions later.
I want to speak to that very briefly. One of my most successful pieces has been a stack of Vibe magazines that were molded and just a glob mess. I didn't make it. I didn't do anything with it. I just kept them and placed them as just a sculpture now. That's like, I spent hours on my drawings, and a stack of magazines is what, I got the most hits on. And it just really spoke to the importance of every single thing that you said. So one last question, Danielle. How can we, everyone here in the audience, how do we support what you're doing? What can we do for you?
I mean, I think it's exactly what I just said. And right now, it really is everybody becoming their own personal archivist and documenting this time now with the intention of later. I mean, wherever you are in the country or in the world, giving to an institution later, like the Gregory School, that is promoting and preserving local history. I mean, I think that is like one of the most important things people can do right now. I mean, and even right now, think about your shopping list. They're completely different right now, right? I mean, and like how that's going to tell a story 50 years from now, and what an impact. Journal. Whichever way you need to, whether it be through images, whether it be written. Don't get rid of photographs just because you don't think you look great in them right now. This time is just so important to document what's really going on. So that's what everyone can do for us.
I love that. We will certainly do our best. That's something we can do, and we can start now. We probably already have started. We just didn't think of it in that way. Danielle, are you ready for your poll question?
I am.
All right, Grant, if you would please put up the next poll. Give him a second to do that. All right, so Danielle, if you were, the audience is going to respond first, of course. Danielle, if you were inviting all of us over for dinner, which I know would be safe and amazing, who would be your guest of honor? So audience, do you think it will be Malcolm X, Bon Jovi, Sade, or Augusta Savage? We'll give you guys a little bit of time to answer that question. In the meantime, Danielle, thank you. While the poll is going on, let's be real. Artists want to know, how do we get on the radar? How do we get discovered by curators? Like, it's a rare opportunity to meet a curator, and it's usually out and about when it's not an appropriate time to say, hey, can you look at my portfolio? I'm an artist, or, you know, it's just not the way things go. We need to connect with curators. So how do you find the artists that because you work outside of the library, you've curated, right, and we didn't even get to a morsel of what you do, the project you're working on in Mississippi, but you are also, in the very traditional sense, a curator. Mm-hmm. How do I get across Danielle's radar?
I'm telling you, what has changed the game is Instagram. And I say that because, like, the artists that I follow, you know, of course I follow you, Rabéa, but then seeing what you post and seeing who's responding to your post and looking up those artists, I mean, it has completely changed the game. And the amount of access that, I mean, not only artists have to curators, but curators have to artists. So
thank you.
You know, I want to say something about that Instagram,
please.
You know, just kind of building on what you just said, Danielle, is that when I look at an artist's Instagram, yes, you'll see the work, but like you said, it's like there's a part of it, even with captions or who they're following, it really shares a bit about their intention.
Mm-hmm,
you know,
absolutely.
It really gives a bit of a narrative or the story behind their work. And to me, I think it makes it not even just more interesting, but you can find these stronger alignments with whatever it is that you are doing. Or sometimes an artist will take you down a really amazing rabbit hole, you know, with their work or just with
a
the
rabbit hole indeed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, is it a rabbit hole, a black hole, a vortex? I mean, it just depends, you know, but I would say that, you know, definitely Instagram has been something I looked at. And I would add on to that also, Danielle, is that never underestimate the power of a good tech cleanup. You know, it's like if your name, you Google yourself, make sure all of the links work wherever that is, or that the profiles are up to date, or if you're not using that profile on that platform anymore, get rid of it. You know, just make sure your stuff is accurate, that it works, that your Instagram links somewhere where someone can actually contact you, that the email address works. It's these simple things because, you know, time is of the essence, you know?
Man, Janice, thank you. Because isn't it fair to say that you would lose interest in me if you logged on some link and the last time I posted was 2013?
Yes.
Do you still care what my work looks like? No. You want to see what I did this week, right? That's fair.
Well, the question is, do you care about your work if you haven't posted since 2013? You know what I mean? So,
yes. That valid. Because I'm like, oh, you're an artist, but you haven't made anything in a while. Like, put it out there. Just audience members, simple comments, respectful comments under someone's post is like raising your hand in class. Oh, I see you. Let me see what this person's talking about, because I do it too. And what is the wrong way of trying to get your attention on Instagram? Anyone can answer that.
The wrong way.
Yeah, like don't slide in the DMs and say, I'm an artist, click my link. Like there's some etiquette involved in there, but let me circle back around. We can think about that question a little bit. Danielle, we want to get these results on your poll because otherwise we'll be here all day.
Oh, I see.
Interesting. Okay, so the audience thought it was Augusta Savage. There's a connection there though, however. What's the right answer?
It's actually Malcolm X.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, and actually that question or the answer hasn't changed since high school, since reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. changed my life completely, and definitely would love to have him as a guest of honor.
Thank you. I'm coming to that party. Ladies, we're all invited. Audience, we're invited.
Yeah.
You know, I know you love Sade, but you love you some John Bon Jovi too. I gotta put that out there. And Augusta Savage and that PV
course.
connection.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So,
Of course.
Danielle, I'm gonna let you segue into our last and final guest, Mrs. Julia Grosse. And because there's a crossover there. Would you like to tell us what that is?
Sure. So in October of 2019, I had the pleasure of working with Julia and Yvette from Contemporary And. They had a exhibition show called Show Me Your Shelves, and it was an artistic dialogue between Black artists from Germany and the United States. And it was brought together for artists to reflect on the similarities and kind of the differences of culture and lifestyle, and from the perspective of the German Afro diaspora experience and Black American perspectives. So I guess from there, I'll hand it over to Julia, or do you have an introduction, Rabéa?
Yeah, well, I have kind of an introduction. I just I'm happy to have been introduced to Julia via Grant, and as soon as I clicked on her name and saw what she's doing, it was an immediate yes. And then the fact that she already had a connection to Houston, and Danielle, like all of this happened after the fact, and it just solidified like, all right, this was the perfect like choice of panelists because we're all like interconnected. And for me, again, my connection to Germany is heartfelt. So herzlich willkommen, Julia. And I want to celebrate you. So before we get too much into it, I just want to share with the audience that yourself and Yvette were awarded the European Cultural Manager of the Year for the year 2020. And that is pretty amazing. Yeah, claps all right. In European Cultural Manager of the Year.
Yeah, it sounds a bit over the top.
I mean, that is official. Can you tell us what does that mean?
Yeah, well, it sounds, as you say, it sounds a bit over the top, but the nice thing we guess behind it is that, normally, as all of us, what we are doing, Janice and Danielle, is sitting in juries, supporting artists, helping them, with their careers, etc., supporting networks, and this prize kind of honors the people behind the artists, these structures, because normally, let's say the people managing art scenes or museums work, etc., don't get prizes, let's say. So this prize kind of has this focus on the people behind the scenes in a way. So that's why we kind of feel honored and like this idea as well.
Thank you so much for mentioning the behind the scenes, because again, that's something that we're celebrating here today. All of you have very important roles behind the scenes, but your roles all involve me. And I'm speaking for the entire collective of people that are watching, artists. And if it wasn't for us making art, you would have no content. And if it wasn't for you taking that content and putting it out in the world, no one will ever see our work. So the behind the scenes that goes into just something like coordinating an artist talk, and that's a lot of work goes into that. So congratulations. And let me just say, like, you take the term multi-hyphenate to the next level. Writer, curator, art historian, journalist, custodian, publicist, lecturer. This is how both you and Yvette were described on this panel. And you were also, in great company on your short list with the director of the Uffizi Gallery, with the director of Beethoven House. That's really quite amazing. But I would love for you to share with us, like, your baby, Contemporary And hip us to what it is that this is for us.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks again for inviting me alongside your ladies. You're all amazing, and I love all of your work. And yeah, maybe the connection, first of all, regarding COVID, Danielle, I absolutely agree. I have a Corona file on my desktop, which is called Corona, and I just throw in all of these things which I think might be of interest in 20 years, pictures, articles, all of that stuff, because as you say, it's just gone in the moment, and then in 10 years, people are young, next generation is asking us, so what was it like? And we have nothing to show, so that's why it's really a good point you mentioned. And the connection to Houston, which is exactly 1 year ago, is, as Danielle said, that we had this exhibition panel workshop project, which took place in Detroit and in Houston. And as Danielle said, bringing together artistic voices from, let's say, Black Germany and Black America. And we've been looking for locations very hard. We thought of St. Louis as well, Atlanta, but in the end thought that Houston and Detroit are just perfect locations to kind of realize these projects with exhibitions and workshops there. And the focus, because why is it called Show Me Your Shelves, is in a way a series we've been establishing on Contemporary End, focusing on very special libraries who are not like the big British library, etc., but who hold very special collections on Black art culture, Black aesthetics, etc. Collections who are very precious, but normally don't have that kind of visibility you would a British library, for example, would have. And that's why we had this series, or still have it inside the library, where we invite these different libraries from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, Rabat in Morocco, Stuart Hall Library in London, which is a small, really fine library, etc., bringing these different voices together. And this kind of led us to this series. And yeah, it was just amazing to have the show at the Gregory School, because there's a lot of space and we could install all the different media in the rooms, and we had completely freedom, we, the artists, to use the different rooms, to use the staircase and the big windows. So it was amazing, like a mix of video, of photography. We had even this big installation by Ty Butler, maybe he's listening, outside, and it was great. So it was a great experience, especially to have it outside a white cube, but to install it inside a different location, which is in this case the library. So that's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning Tay, Regina Agu. It was Tay Butler and Regina Agu were the Houston artists. Can you mention again the names? I don't. Daniel, did you mention them earlier? And I didn't hear it. Or who are the artists from the Germany side?
Yeah, the German side was Amelia Omohire, is her name, and she's from Berlin. And Anik Sadiq, she's the other artist. She's from the southern part of Germany. And it was just nice to bring them together, as you mentioned already, Danielle, to experience, the shared experiences they had as artists living in Germany, working in Germany and in the US, because obviously, there's history that connects us, World War II, etc. So there's a big link from between Germany and the US, obviously, and there's a big, the US was, especially for us as Black Germans, a big and important part of our history, and a big reference for us as well. As young teenagers, for example, the US and Black America was very important to us in terms of idols, pop culture, hip hop culture, everything. So that's why we have a big link to the US, and that's why it was very important and interesting to bring these young voices together and see them exchange and share histories, but as well see or discover differences as well. So that was just amazing.
Thank you. And you mentioned the word linking several times, and that is speaks perfectly to what you've already put out there for us, and that's this huge online platform. So you've already conquered the part about how do we get art out there to everyone. You know, it's digital. We have access to it here in the States, and for a portal like this to be so global is amazing. I even wore my globe earrings for you today because you just represent the whole world for me. But you also recently launched another initiative, and that is focusing on the arts of Latin America as well. So could you please share a
Yes.
little bit about what your platforms highlight for us?
Yes, yes. Thanks so much. So first of all, what we think is amazing and very interesting is then that since the beginning of the end, which is launched was 2013, and since then constantly the main readership has been in the US really. So you are the main readers of Contemporary End, which we really find amazing, followed by, of course, many European countries, Germany, UK, France, but as well South Africa, Brazil, etc. But that the US is reading Contemporary and so really in huge numbers was always amazing to see for us. And the interesting thing is with the End America Latina, because this comes out in, as maybe you can see, in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. This still, or as well, is read by Americans on place one, let's say. And the interesting thing is that most of the contents are read by Americans, but in Spanish. So by many Latinx people, we guess, we don't know, but we think. And this is something we find super interesting as well. And we launched Contemporary End America Latina in 2018 because we always had a focus on the end on different topics around Afro-Latin American artistic production in relation to, and from the Caribbean and in relation to Africa, because there's, there are these big links between Brazil and Angola, Brazil and in Portugal, etc., and other countries as well. So we always had these features and realized that people loved the content and read it in high numbers. And then we had a launch because we have a print issue as well. I would love to show you one. I don't see it. I don't have an issue here, but we launched one issue 2016 focusing on the Sao Paulo Biennale. So it came out in English and Portuguese, and did a big party in Sao Paulo during the opening week of the Biennale. And 400 Black Brazilian artists were partying with us. And after that event, many came to us and said that was such a unique event, because normally when we as Black artists in the Brazilian art scene, when we party or do an event, we always have to go in the periphery because we are completely not visible in the center of the Brazilian art scene. And this kind of, we knew about this, but this shocked us so much to see that it's actually really true. And it took us 2 more years to kind of bring this version to life, to get funding, etc., to focus, only on, let's say, Black Latin America and the Caribbean in relation to Africa. And that's how it came. Bit of this, out of this experience we made, there's this big invisibility, still a big and a huge topic over there in all of these different countries. For example, we did research in Peru and talked to people from the art world there, and they said, "Oh, it's an interesting topic you do, focusing on Black Latin American perspectives, etc. But here in Peru, we don't have any Black artists, which is obviously not true. Yeah, there is a Black art scene. It's small, but there are these artists, and of course we are in close connection with them, etc. But to hear this, kind of made it even more important to us to not to do something, but to make this happen, to create this network."
Thank you for fighting the fine fight of underrepresentation, because the fact is, artists are making the work whether you see it or not, and that has just been proven. It's we make work because that's what we do. There's no, it's not because we have a show coming up or this, that, and those are all amazing things, and what we strive for. A lot of us, let's be realistic, we want to show the work, we want to get feedback from it. We want to share it with curators. We want to share it with the rest of the world and hope that someone on the receiving end can relate to it or
Yes.
can see
Yeah.
something. And that's the beauty of social media. It's the beauty of the internet, where we're connecting in a split second with visuals and art in this way. So thank you so much. Like really, if you log on to this website, we were talking about rabbit holes earlier, and like just Instagram hole, but to have, this is a rabbit hole you want to get stuck in. And so I was going to ask you, but I think I kind of know the answer based on what you told us. But what can we as audience members do to support your space? Read, right? We need to be reading and reading and showing that we're hungry for this content. And I think this is the perfect time for your panel question, because it's somewhat related. So Grant, if you don't mind, will you pull up the next question for the audience to respond to? So for Julia, since I want to take advantage of the opportunity to have your attention and to be in front of you at this time, I have these questions, and then the audience can pick which one they feel they want to ask you the most. Okay, if you have time, we can answer a few more, but how can I get my project or work featured on your website? How do you stay organized, and do you ever get a day off? Because you do. What advice can you give an artist like me who wants to show outside of our city or even outside of our country? And what do you like the most about your job?
Oh, nice.
I want to know the answer to all of these questions, but we're gonna let the audience decide. And in the meantime, I had a great Twitter question that if you have a minute, you could respond to. Here it is. Okay, it's from. I'm just gonna say her name. She'll be okay. It's from Chanel Frazier, because her Twitter handle is all letters. But her question: you didn't curate and dedicated art spaces. What's another place or space you like to curate if you weren't doing it in like
Oh, can you repeat it again? Because I talked through it and I didn't hear them. Sorry, can you repeat again?
So basically, outside of a traditional art space, what is the space that you would like to get into to curate?
No, I get it. Okay. Yeah, first of all, you know, for example, the Houston project or the project in Detroit was very, very exciting for us, because we, ended up showing a video space in the main hall of the Detroit Public Library, which is, covered with murals, and it was just an amazing space to do something there. But a more or less glamorous place I would love to show video work is in a gambling hall, to be honest, covered with these what is it, screens, these screens for football, or horse racing and all of that stuff. I would love to, and we always thought about doing a video exhibition there, to have like 50 screens covered with the same work by the same artist. This is something I always thought of.
You photographers out there, all of you visual artists, antennas up. We've got a future project, perhaps. Are we ready for the poll? Yeah. Okay. Number one question. Oh, nice. What advice can you give an artist who wants to show outside of their city or country?
Yeah, again, obviously, being connected via social media channels is a good chance to be seen. And, we talked about this already, but to be seen by curators or potential museums, curators outside your turf or your scene, your community, etc. So this is one great way. For example, we discovered for us artists on Instagram who then we featured in our print issues as well. And through this, she, for example, or they, got a new or received new visibility, which obviously, is interesting or might get the attention of other museums or galleries as well. So this obviously is one way. I would as well say traveling, which is right now a bit tricky, but obviously if you do travel a lot, bit the old school way. I don't know if it's still, maybe it's out of fashion now, but back in the days, like 2 years ago, artists would obviously try to go to a biennale in another city, or to try to go to other art events in order to connect, with other people from the art world, be it artists or young curators, etc. So kind of widening your network by physically being somewhere else, at art events where you obviously gather, etc. So, but right now, I think it's more internet, or the digital sphere to connect with people and make your work seen. What I wanted to add as well, when you said how can you support us as the end, obviously read, but as well, I think what is so important to us is to fill us in with your local and deep knowledge of the cultural structure you're working in, to fill us in about art spaces we haven't heard about, artists we haven't heard about, artist-run spaces, collectives, etc. Because this is what we live off. This constantly growing network lives off the local knowledge, the deep knowledge of you as cultural producers. So get in contact with us and fill us in. That's what I wanted to add as well. Sorry.
Sorry, I was unable to unmute. How do we contact you? What's the best way?
Just go on the website, and there's info@contemporaryend.com. So this is, because we're not a big team. It's not like, it's not a big castle with thousands of layers. It's really very straightforward. So if you email us, we're very fast and would get back to you. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Julia. Everyone, it's the top of the hour. We have a little bit of time set aside for some Q&A. And so I would like to take this time to open up the Q&A box here. And if that's okay with you all.
Yeah, I mean, while we're doing that, I just wanted to, make a comment that was connecting a couple of things that I keep hearing from both Danielle and Julia about visibility. A relationship between an institution and an artist, its best and in its most sustainable configuration is symbiotic. Both the institution and artists, need something. And so it's really, it's incumbent upon us both as artists, institutions, creatives, curators, keepers of the archive, collectors, to lay bare and be intentional about our engagement with each other. If we're really about the connection between, artists of color, just artists across the pond or hyper locally, like make it plain. And then put your actions strategically towards those particular goals. I think that there's a lot of there's strategy and steps and different things like that. But really the shortest distance is the truth. And the shortest distance alongside that is trust. And so again, going back to, what we've internally adopted at CAM, and one of the reasons why I love Gregory School and Danielle, and I've been a huge fan of Contemporary and then you, Rabéa, both as an artist and a human, is because the distance is short to the point. It's trust, it's truth, it's community, it's intention, it's beauty, it's all of these things. And we don't have to manufacture it. I'm sitting here, this is actually not like a digital background. I'm really at the museum.
That's amazing.
It's like,
it looks real.
But it's like, you're sitting within the world of creation, and if you do that, the tap is ever flowing, of inspiration and energy. So I just wanted to kind of tie a bit of that together for us.
No, that's true. That's exactly what I wanted to say earlier, is that, you need you as an artist, you need the museum, but the museums need you too, and this is maybe, you know, through this year, you know, I think that especially young artists can take all of their courage and say, you know, of course, I want to show at this museum, but you know, they want me to show because, as you say, it's a symbiotic thing. You know, you need them, but they need you as well. So I think it's
And
We need to hear it.
I was about to say, I think that's empowering for artists to hear.
Yeah.
We need to make the work, and the room will appear. I say it to myself, like, make the work, and like, don't jump ahead of yourself. You know, don't make the work because there's an opportunity. Be genuine, make the work because that's what you do. The room that work is supposed to be in, even though there's other elements involved with that. But if you're staying true, like what Janice said, that room will appear. Just stick with it. There's, you
People
know,
are always watching, you know, whether you know it or not, you know, like it's not even always about you finding the way. Yes, you should, you know, be proactive about your career and your artwork and your discipline. But, you know, word travels, art travels. I mean, and it really, you know, word travels at the rate of like revolution and inspiration. So, you know, if you're doing good work, I think of it always as like the best marketing is to just do a good job.
Yeah.
You know, just do your job.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything else will come.
Janice, I just saw your message about speaking on visibility. Were you able to?
Yeah, that was it. You know, this was all of that. This was all of that.
Thank you. All right, we're going to segue because we just have a couple of minutes, but I want to acknowledge the audience questions. And one of them is from Bridget. And she says, I have many pictures of great Black Lives Matter murals from New York City that emerged during the large protests that could be useful for such collecting items relevant to these important times. The question is, where should she send them?
Thanks, Bridget, for the question. I guess I'll take that just because I know it's archive based, but you should really look at the Schomburg. I'm sure you're familiar. I hope you're familiar with the Schomburg. It's part of the New York Public Library, and it's also an archives library. And we're actually modeled after them. So they're telling the story of basically Black New York, but they have a larger scope also, but through their archives. So I would encourage you to contact them. Or an institution like that. I mean, there are plenty of other archives actually in New York also. I would just start kind of locally, just because I know that the national museums are getting kind of inundated right now, just talking to some colleagues there. But if you have this documentation, you should totally send it.
Thank you. Amalia asked, what are the best ways to document and preserve ephemera at home? And Danielle, while we're on you, I'll let you answer that as well. Or anyone really.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I do. I mean, just as a curator, there are archival materials that are acid free. Like I just have a box at home, and I literally just continue to put things in it until it gets too full, and then I take it to the Gregory School. Because I do believe that people should look into local organizations and institutions that collect local history, because oftentimes, I mean, it's not doing any good at home with you. It needs to be in an institution where people can actually research the materials. So I encourage people to do that. And also what happens is people are so afraid to let go of things, but we saw this with Harvey, which was, you know, a national disaster, and people lost you know, photographs, you know, documents, so many things in the flood. And, you know, thinking about if it would have been in an institution where it could be archived properly and, you know, proper climate control, that stuff could have been saved. So I do encourage people, you know, start at home, do what you can, do some research, because I'm assuming like there are people from all over the country on this call, But there are local institutions within cities that are doing the work we're doing. And specifically in Houston, there's the Gregory School, and there's the Houston Metropolitan Research Center. That's also our sister institution, part of the Houston Public Library system. And even colleges are collecting things. U of H has a great archival collection. So
yes, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that space as well, because I know for a fact they're collecting a lot of hip hop memorabilia, original recordings, that kind of a thing. If you have any of that sort, contact them. They also pay for that. They will buy things. And that's something, not, don't pull up to Gregory School with your truck full of stuff and say, Danielle, I want to check.
Yeah, and that is such an unfortunate thing, because we are, kind of in a, I hate to use the word competition, but when you have an institution that will pay you for your things, and then a local institution that it's just about, giving, it's hard. It's hard, but I do encourage people to give, though. Either way. So.
All right, we have just time for one last question. We're doing great on time. So an audience, thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to say I have everyone's Instagram handles there for you. If you have to log off, we completely understand. But the last question is, what kind of art exhibitions do you think, or excuse me, what kind of art or exhibitions do you think will flourish in a post-pandemic art world?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would
I
say.
say this. Oh,
Yeah, use that. No, use that.
I would say the work that is intentional, clear, and consistent. There's a lot of different messages that are out right now, and there's a lot of conversation about work that reflects the time. And I always think about it as an artist myself, and as a curator, administrator, whatever, multi-hyphenate. I'm like, when have I not reflected the times? I'm Black. Like everything I do is a reflection of the times. Everything I put into this world is a reflection of the times, because I am in it. Everything that I produce is a reflection of the time. Everyone that I work with, we are a reflection of each other. And so I think it'll look different, but I believe the work that will continue to shine and what will rise to the top or continue to rise is the work that has clear intention. It doesn't always have to have a socio-political overtone or undertone, but if it's done well and you're pushing it and you're there, I mean, people are really looking and attaching in visceral ways. Like, it's not like, oh, that's nice. Like, if you could see it now, like with art and curators and even collectors, there's a more of a emotional response and true attachment to work that has something to say. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I think too. I would say, obviously, there will be many exhibitions coming up next year focusing on the big questions, such as, I don't know, community, climate change, taking care of each other, all of these acute and important and basic questions. I think I don't know, obviously, but there are going to be a lot of shows focusing on that. Or if we, for example, in Germany, we have this big mega art event, Documenta, coming, Documenta 15, and their focus is on the community, collective and collectively organized work as an artist, but as a community as well. And this is going through all their actions as well. If they contact other artists, they, for example, and if they talk about, okay, should we include this project or this, they always discuss it as a collective. There's no ego thing that, one is the editor or the curator at large, or the chief curator. It's all in a collective. It's all one collective decision. And I think these kind of models might come up more in the future, because we went all through all of these last months in a way together. Everyone in a different way, obviously, but I think the idea of the collective will play an important role. That's just guessing. I don't know.
No.
I hope so.
We're all just figuring it out in our most authentic ways. I want to thank all of you for your kind, insightful responses. They've helped me in some very practical ways, and then also to let bridging this gap between what's going on over there with you, Julia, and here, and on a, like I keep saying the word global. We're experiencing the same thing at the same time, and we're just trying to figure it out. So if I haven't mentioned any of the many art spaces that have helped me personally, I just want to say thank you to those spaces. For artists that want to reach out and ask me anything beyond this webinar, please at me on Instagram, send me a DM. I'm here to advocate for you, for us as artists, and connecting to whoever we can possibly connect one another to. We've got some great ways to help out these ladies and the institutions. And I want to thank Goethe Pop-Up for creating the space, for allowing me to talk to these wonderful women. So thank you so much. I think we're like a minute short. So thank you. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much for, it was an amazing style, really well done.
Thank you. This
I
is
enjoyed it a lot. It was very entertaining and smart at the same time.
Yes, absolutely.
Really good. Every panel should be like this. You have to put a pattern. How do you have to trademark it? Like the Rabéa Ballin.
Exactly. We'll do it in Germany.
Live, or have we hopped off, Grant?
No, we're still live. So I just wanted to say thank you very much once again to everybody who joined in to watch, and thank you very much to Julia, Janice, Danielle, and of course Rabéa for this awesome discussion today.
Let's give them a round of applause.
So,
Let's use our functions. Where is all this fun stuff where I can like give applause? Like I'm trying to figure it out.
Don't do it. It's okay. You'll get lost.
Oh.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Can we stay on? Grant, what happens next?
I think we just have to end it. There's no way to
okay.
You can't kick us out. Okay, then we kick us out ourselves. Bye, ladies.
Reading.
Bye.
I'll connect on the other side. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This was great, Rabéa.
Thanks, Danielle. Thank you.